We got to go on.
Jean Marinas with American Realty. We have several apartment buildings throughout the community with various different sites with different constraints. So I would ask that we have an opportunity to go to each site and say, this is what we would do to make it better or to fix it. Because there's some, like you said, that there's just no way we could put a dumpster and have the cars get around it and get the trucks to it and have our tenants get around it. So I'm just asking that you consider this being each individual rather than lumping it all together and doing it, saying that everybody has to have an enclosure. Because there's some places we just physically cannot do it. We just can't, and we will not be in compliance. And we don't want that. We don't like that situation.
I can kind of comment off that too as well. I mean, you get things like that, you put in an enclosure, then you're going to get in parking lots and cars keep parking in front of it, and at the same time we can't pick it up. That's just going to pile up and pile up and pile up until someone finally figures out who owns that car, because it's a constant nuisance because that car's always parked there or something like that until we do get it dumped. But it's just going to be an eyesore because it's going to end up piling up over the enclosure or out the front of the enclosure.
I want to clarify that the ordinance says screen from view. And I know that I posted, or had my administrative assistant post a bunch of enclosure pictures on our website, city website. And, but, you know, only if it's like out in the middle of a parking lot that you can see, would you probably have to screen all four sides. I mean, it potentially could be a fence. It could be, you know, if it's behind a building, then it's screened. So there's numerous ways that things could be screened from view. It doesn't always have to be a four-sided enclosure. In some instances, though, I mean, landscaping would be a screening, you know, if you could, whatever. So there were options besides just a four-sided enclosure.
Tim Latham. A couple of things. I first want to thank you guys for listening tonight, but you know, I think a lot of people have missed the idea of the cost of building this structure. I mean, we're talking approximately $3,000 if you have 2 containers that you're going to stick in one of these, and you might think, we don't care. Well, that's a big cost. The other cost is going to be in the wintertime when it snows. You know, these guys, you know, first of all, they usually come at 4, 5 in the morning to get this. We're not going to be there to shovel that snow so they can get in there to get the garbage. So the garbage is going to pile up. The other thing that happens is we have a lot of people, just like they said, they dump next to our dumpsters. There's nothing we can do. They're going to do that no matter what. I don't care if there's an enclosure or not, they're going to do it. One of the other examples I would use is up at the Little League ball diamonds. They use a lot of the small containers all through the diamond area. You know, there's no way you could build a structure around each one of those. And if you don't have them and you just have them centrally located, the other thing's going to happen, there's just going to be garbage everywhere. So this ordinance is totally, it's not practical. I mean, 90% of the places that you go to don't have room that you're going to be able to do to even do that. It's the same thing down at our store. In the back where we keep the containers, we'd lose a door that we use. We can roll the container to the side to get a semi in, but if we can't get that semi, if we can't use that door, if we have to build an enclosure, then we're going to lose that door and lose the possibilities of getting trucks in and out. So, but the cost is huge. I mean, $3,000. And I guarantee you these nice snow guys here are going to hit it, and I'm not going to fix it. If it's leaning over, I don't care. I mean, at this point, if you're going to make us do it, you're going to see a lot of those structures like that they're just going to look terrible after a few years anyway. So, I mean, it's just, you know, it's just not a good rule. It needs to be changed. I even sat in on some of these meetings when you had your zoning things, talking about things. Never heard that come up once. So, I mean, I just really is it's just a bad rule, should have never been in there. I'm all for beautification in Mason City, we need to do that, but the laws need to just be enforced, and then that'll be a big thing. Thank you.
Larry Elwood, Mason City, have a commercial building on South Federal, minor behind the building, and I think that's probably permissible. The other side of it, though, is I think of so many being in the construction business, we do go and to a lot of commercial sites where we end up repairing dumpsters or the containment areas. And, you know, you take a container, as they're saying, that's 5 foot, 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot, 11 foot, and weighs hundreds of pounds and is 4 to 6 foot deep, and you try to put it in a spot that's within 6 inches of perfect every time. And remember, ideal weather, every day here is always the same, except for the ice and snow. But, and so we have two issues. One, we got a big hunk of a container that they've got to load into a great big, huge truck, and then they have to set it back down. And I'm not trying to run you guys down, but they're not always so careful. And so many times, even the containment areas that we've got are messed up. And so sometimes I look at beautification of some of the containers things that say they look just as bad as if you would just tear the dang things down and let it show. And then secondly, I think just the NIMBY side is not my backyard, but I think about it weather here. You want to go to California, you want to go to Arizona, and the weather's the same, all we do is mow grass and spray weeds. It's easier to run or have a container that you can pull and roll. You can have a 200-pound container and say, well, gee, anybody can roll that, unless you have a quarter of an inch nice, and then nobody's going to be able to roll it. Then two things happen. One, we can endanger everyone who's going to mess with it, but besides that, most of the time, they're not going to mess with it. Now I'm inconvenienced. Now I got a full dumpster. And so from that perspective, it's out, you know, when people can get at it, I don't care if it's got ice or snow, they can dump it. If it's in a containment area, I don't think it works well. I understand restaurants where they have grease, stink, and they have slimier garbage than a lot of the things that goes on. They should have containments, and I think that we probably do a good job with that, but for the rest of it, I'm not so sure. And you see the site with all the things on the sign with volunteer garbage? Good night alive. I paid for more loads going out than I've ever put in. And that's going to happen, and if you make us put a fence around it, I swear to God, it'll be piled right in front of the gate. I mean, I get tires and TVs, and I'm just one little location with lights on. I got lights all the way around my building at night, and it still happens. I'm against it. I think it's fine with it.
I just relaying some messages from a couple business owners that couldn't be here this evening, but their dumpsters are strictly in the alley, you know, so they wouldn't even be able to put the fences up, and they're, you know, they wouldn't know what to do, because that's the only place for their dumpsters.
No, they're exempt if they're in the alley.
Okay.
Alleys are public right of way, and if that's the only place a business has to put them, that's why alleys were built primarily in the commercial district anyway, to be the service area. So if you're no available property to put it on and it has to be in the alley, we don't want structures in our alleyways, so the dumpster is exempt in the alley.
Okay.
I guess that wasn't spelled out specifically in the ordinance.
Okay.
Max Weaver, Mason City. We've all taken a lot of phone calls, most council persons. But let me just say a couple things. Number one, and Mary Markwalder's here from the library, and you can correct me, Mary, if I'm wrong, but I came to your meeting last Tuesday with another council member, and I think we learned then that the bid that you received for your 2 dumpsters in the parking lot of the Mason City Public Library would reflect what Tim Latham was saying, $27,000. The cost would be $27,000. So,
1,000 or 27?
27,000.
You have to explain
Well, no, well, you know what?
Change contract.
Two.
The reason that we did was so that we don't have an operations problem, because we're short on operations money. 5 years from now, we're gonna have to paint it, rebuild it. If we don't build it this way when we have the capital money, which I'd really rather use the capital money on something other than a dumpsters around, that's why. We're building it so that we don't have a big problem in 5 years and it looks like hell. Or 10 years. Ours will look really nice, and plus we were told to match the building. This matches the building.
Secondly, I just want to say this. During the process, and there's a couple other council members here that could correct me if I'm wrong, or Pam yourself, I remember, I believe, that when we were doing this zoning issue that took over a year to do, to look at the 22, 23 different zoning districts and all the things that were that would accompany those districts, down to what, 6 or 7, zoning districts, which I really thought was a great idea what we did. We really did. But what we said is that there was so much stuff being covered in there that we would have the potential to tweak things as we learned of them as the seasons rolled by. Now this particular issue, I think, went into force maybe December 31st of 2010. We adopted it. So naturally, it's going to be it's going to be enforced coming up. So we're taking input. This is one of those instances where I hope the council members like myself will side on that. Hope that the P&Z will definitely look at this. You've taken your input. You've heard about it. Send back a recommendation of an amendment to the code, and the council can have it and have their 3 hearings on it and do what's right. This is just a bad time economy-wise to have this type of, whether it's $2,000 or $27,000 to put on the backs of business owners right now. And I think we could do that if there would be support at the planning and zoning level, and if my colleagues are listening to their constituents like I am. Thank you.